spend this hour. Yeah, and thank you for choosing to spend this hour with us to share and learn together. This is very heartwarming to see so many familiar names and faces. And I have to tell you that while thinking about the preparation, the topic, and the examples that I could share with you today, I was very much under the influence of all the ideas shared during the IATEFL BC conference that took place last weekend. And I was thinking all the time about a couple of ideas shared by one of the plenary speakers, Evan Frendo, where he was telling us and calling on everyone to prepare our learners for the unexpected by including the unexpected in our training. But at the same time, there was a lot of responsibility on us as trainers to be flexible and be ready to respond to this unexpected, not just by introducing it, by helping learners deal with it. So I know that whenever we talk about benefits of language training, especially in the workplace, for many of us, it's a mystery. And if we at some point believe that this mystery has been solved, it may be too optimistic because life will definitely throw something new at us. And I still believe there is hope and that the sun will rise eventually. This is a kind of illustration from my home city, Lviv. And I took this picture before one of my classes when I was really thinking a lot how to help my learner. And you will meet one of the learners in my further story today. And before I introduce my learners, I thought it should be appropriate to share a bit more about my journey and where I have these ideas from. So I started my professional journey after the graduation from the Translation Studies Department of Lviv Ivan Franko National University. And I had a wonderful opportunity to actually embark on the teaching career at my own department, which was a great honor. It took me some time to understand how things worked in tertiary education in Ukraine at that time. And I realized that I wanted to get wider experience and of other areas as well. So I moved a bit into freelance teaching and translation, and most of my activities were while dealing and helping adults learn. That was my passion at that time. So as IT industry was actively growing in Ukraine and in Lviv, I started joining different companies, middle-sized and small, to help their employees learn English to communicate with their colleagues worldwide. These were quite early days for me, and everything was new, everything was exciting. And I realized that it was a wonderful opportunity to learn from adults like me and to share something that they were probably interested in terms of my experience as a language and communication professional. So I moved into a full-time company role where I got some incredible insight into what the real life of in-company employees in IT industry was. And after that, again, after some time, I started moving more into freelance training, combining both. So at the moment, I'm again at a kind of transition stage to some more of a consulting role and focusing more on intercultural communication and communication in general in the same industry. So based on all of these different experiences, I thought that I have some very general idea of what my approach is at the moment to language training when especially in this professional sphere. And to me, learning and training is always a business partnership. Whether that's a one-to-one setting or a group setting, learners have to understand that the way they treat their employer or client is very similar to the way they should treat, for example, us as colleagues and trainers, and those who help them do their job in a better way. That means that our roles should be clarified from the very beginning. Ideally, this should be done in writing if possible. I'm not talking just about some official papers, but even clarifying this at the beginning of your, for example, cooperation in the first meeting is very helpful and very much desired in this case. The signed contract is a great benefit. That's what I've learned being a freelancer. It really makes it much easier to do all the invoice stuff, and it makes very smooth the process of establishing your cancellation policy. Once you discuss it, once people actually sign on the dotted line, they are appreciating everybody's time and contribution much more. The goals should be definitely clarified through needs analysis, and these should be facts and evidence, data-driven, so to say, not something that we assume people need, but what we've agreed with people to focus on. This all brings us to shared responsibility. This is really important because in many cases, my learners think that if I have a language trainer, they should tell me what I put there, what I include in that this message, but that is not so. We may be consulting, but whether we are ready to take the decision for our learners, that's a totally different story. So this is mutual help, facilitation. This leads us to respect. That is the cornerstone of all the cooperation, and ideally shared values based on the goals outlined and all the previous points mentioned. And ideally, the more we cooperate with our learners, based on all of these pillars, we should be able to achieve this magic trust in a way that motivates people to keep the cooperation, to expand it sometimes through the company or to other companies. So let me introduce the first learner whose profile we'll be dealing with today. This is Mary. For sure, I had to change the names to keep the privacy of my learners, and I'm still very grateful to them for this opportunity to share their stories with you today. So Mary, in this stage of her career that we are going to explore, was a project manager, and the other learner who will be joining us today is Michael, a technical leader. Both work in a middle-sized company, different companies, and both of them based in Lviv at that stage. So Mary was working for a Danish company. Her language level at that time was more or less upper intermediate. There were for sure some issues to improve and work on, sometimes accuracy, sometimes fluency, depending on the factors involved. And at that point in time, we were already in our 4th year of cooperation with Mary. So the goals that were identified at that stage, she wanted to become a better communicator. So we were able to reach this agreement on focusing on communication, not just a better speaker of English. She had the ambition for sure to grow professionally, which was absolutely motivating for her. And she really needed more confidence, self-confidence in terms of using English. That was something very subtle and quite interesting to work on. So one of the first stories that that happened to Mary in our journey was the one with emailing with an angry customer. Now, the story happened the following way. One winter day, I got a message from Mary in our Skype chat that had this smiley face. And what she shared was the following message, that there was a customer in her company that she was working for, and he was unhappy, really unhappy. And there was a message full of anger, full of disappointment and other negative feelings, actually. And she wanted my help with it. So she shared this message with me. Please take a minute to read the message that she received from her customer. A very short one, actually. And when Mary shared this message, she said, I have to reply and I'm not sure what to write. So that was not the time for our class, that was in between our classes. So we had the only way to deal with it that was available and possible for us, just chatting on Skype. And she said, I'm going to share my response with you. So she shared it again. That was her idea of replying to the message. Giving you a minute to read through it. And as she had the confidence, she had a trainer at that moment to consult, and she had this opportunity, she just shared this message with me saying, maybe add something, Oksana. I'm not really sure about this text, you know. But there was a bit of a challenge for me. What was I able to do? You know, I was someone external. I didn't have access to all the information, but still she wanted me to do something. So we tried to focus on the message itself. I was trying to elicit more information from her. I was trying to get it through the chat, which wasn't easy. I mean, it was time consuming for sure, both for her and for me. And we came up with this message as a kind of final one to reply. While you're reading this message, feel free to share your ideas in the chat if you see any difference between the original one that Mary prepared and this one that she was ready to send to her customer after cooperating with me. Even if you see no difference, feel free to share as well. This is also feedback, and that's very important and very much encouraged. To save your time, I like the part to save your time. Thanks, Maria. Anita, in the previous one, I didn't like the I'm ready to apologize. That was my feeling too, Anita. Yes, I was somehow leading Mary to the fact that I'm ready to apologize, but I'm not sure if I'm apologizing. That's true. Wonderful. Feel free to share more. This message was one in the series of messages, obviously, with that client. And when we finally met in class, we had a chance to work on more messages from other emails to the client. And that was another one that was included in the much longer original email. So I saw, right, Susanna mentions that she likes the balance of the fixing, retesting, and updating. Exactly, right. Thank you, Susanna, for this feedback. So what I noticed from this message from Mary and her previous messages was that she was quite verbose, so to say, and she wanted to express all of the ideas she had in one message. And it was very important to somehow filter all the emotions, which were there for sure, and the facts. And in our classes, we tried to focus on the messages like these, probably not specifically the previous one. And I wanted her to, Ricardo, cultures involved. Yes, cultures. That was the Danish culture, the client based in Denmark, and Mary, Ukrainian, based in Lviv. Thank you for that. That's very important. And what I tried to do with Mary at this stage, while focusing on this message, I asked her to select the keywords, the words that we called for that activity sense words, which actually carried some meaning. So that was the selection of those words. And then I said, could you please try and select some words that could possibly be modified or are maybe extra, and you could probably delete them altogether from your message? And she said, yeah, that's probably this coding. So from the original message, which was 5 lines long and 2 sentences, meaning 2 very complicated sentences, in that case, we managed to somehow streamline this message to a shorter one. Let it be just 10 words shorter, but still hopefully easier for the person to read and comprehend. And it was a very nice illustration for Mary to see that it wasn't just about the emotions, the apologizing part, but also about the way you communicated, because you had no access to talking to the customer at that point. But still, there was this nagging feeling that the whole communication between Mary and me started with this smiley face. And it took me a while to understand why, what was behind it. Now, this whole story started for Mary on the 7th of January last year. Now, the 7th of January in Ukraine is Christmas. And obviously it was post-festive time in Denmark, but for Mary, it was the time of celebration and family time. I'm not really able to answer the question why Mary opened the email, the inbox, her work inbox during that time, but that was the case. She opened it the next day. That was a working day, the 8th of January, and she saw it. And immediately there was this negative bias. How come I'm trying to respect their free time and I get these messages on a holiday? So the challenge that I had as a trainer was this negative bias. I also had no direct access to information because I was external and I had no possibility to talk to the client to understand why that message was in fact angry, but also had a smiley face at the end. There was a lot of asynchronous communication. So the whole story lasted for almost 2 2 weeks. Mary had to deal with a lot of impressions and ideas and share them with me as it was possible. So at one moment, she was ready to receive feedback, but at the same time, her willingness was a challenge for me because she probably expected more of decision making on my part while I was trying to let her decide and take only the consulting role. So Mary's story continued. Within the same company, she moved into a different role in a couple of months, and she faced with a different challenge. And at this stage, I have to mention Michael, because Michael is her learning partner, actually. And I met both of them in one of the companies they were working for, which I joined to cooperate with. And they were constantly cooperating within the group. Then in our classes, when they had those pair lessons. And it was very important for me and for Mary that there was the third opinion always. He was viewing things from his technical perspective very often, as a technical lead, Mary as a project manager, and myself as a trainer. So when Mary moved into a new role, what we saw was this message. Her new product owner wrote a welcoming message, which you can see on the slide. And let me give you a minute to read it before I start commenting. So her new product owner, again, from the Danish side, wrote this welcoming message. Now, Mary's balance of work and free time at that moment was quite challenging. And she was, in a way, again, taking a holiday, but learning a lot to be ready for the induction period on this new project. And she immediately got the challenge of deciding whether she had to reply in her basically holiday vacation time or not. And if that was the case, to reply immediately, what to reply to this message full of smiley faces, winking faces, and from a totally new person for her. So in our class, we were lucky to meet in class, the three of us. We started going through possible messages from her, and I'm just showing here a selection of 3 sentences that we discussed and highlighted with Mary and Michael as something quite tricky to send. So in the first one, Mary really wanted to be very detailed, but then at the end of the message, she used this "so on." After that, in the next one, she said, if you have any inquiries, I will try to be available. And I'm really willing to bring value. And that was a bit strange to read because she was already part of the project team, which means when they hired her, they knew she would bring value. It was her free time, so why she had to be available, that was the question. And what did she mean by that "so on" at the end? People can interpret it so differently. So we started going through different revisions, and you will see the multiple versions of these sentences. So this, I will try to be available. We were trying to say that, yes, probably I'll deal with any requests very soon without specifying first when exactly. Then I'm willing to add value. All right. at least without intensifying it. It was just version 2. It took us some time to come up with the final message. And it took us probably the whole class for the 3 of us to actually discuss all the hidden meanings, all the connotations. So version 3 was like this, just one sentence at the bottom of the slide. You can read it. And then version 4, that was the final one. So we again decided to focus on facts, to be positive without overcommitting, accepting that yes, there was a lot of information to take over and to learn to complete the handover. And we actually decided to include a smiley face as well. Now, if you've ever used smileys, you probably know that they look very, very different on different devices, but still we gave it a go, and Mary sent a message. And then she kindly shared this final message that she was sending. So you can have some time to read it. She was particularly happy that she was brave enough to send the smiley faces to communicate the positive idea. Strangely enough, these emojis changed their graphic form, so to say, as she learned later, and they just, as a combination of punctuation marks, but that was okay. That was the decision, and that was the outcome. Let it be. As a trainer, again, my challenge was to review, to edit, recommend. But again, I was, standing my ground and saying, no, I'm not taking the decision. The decision is yours. After all, you are doing the job. I have no experience in management and project leadership. That was the biggest challenge. Reply now or later. And I have to say that Mary replied the next day. So she technically replied during her holiday time. But again, at least she didn't say she would be available all the week while she was enjoying the official break. And this perspective from Michael was a lot of help for us, and it was kind of sometimes the balancing force between the ideas we had. So at that point, he had very similar, let's say, experience of cooperating with me as a trainer. Again, same time span, but he was working for a different culture, a US company. And he also had some freelancing experience of not just working in company. So that was the benefit and value of his contribution as well. And they had shared goals, for sure, which was also something that was fundamental to successful cooperation. And absolutely, they were willing to learn together and from each other, which was very helpful. So the benefits on the one hand for Mary, while she was moving through all these transitions, she had a very reliable and responsible learning partner. She had a trainer, and she was able to feel a bit more confident with her communication. She knew at least 2 other opinions while sending any message. She got new prospects, luckily, by changing the projects and developing. Her confidence grew. That was our shared benefit. And for sure, they had a lot of teamwork practice. And I have to say that I really genuinely believe that company, even though they had no idea that the trainer existed, or the trainer worked so closely with the learner, they had a lot of benefit from that as well, because the learner grew within the company, and the company didn't really have to recruit anybody new and take too much care about retaining their employee on this competitive market. So another story from my learners, I just call it a reflection activity of what do you mean? And this is very closely connected with my city. For those of you who don't read in Ukrainian, I will just explain that this is the kind of sign you can see on our public transport when you need to validate the ticket. The sign says that you have to validate your ticket when you get on the tram, on the trolley bus. So just validate it when you get on this specific means of transport. And one day when I was still traveling to, that was pre-pandemic, when I was traveling to classes, I paid attention to the English version. And the English, as you see, says validate your ticket immediately. Now, honestly, I know that Lviv takes pride on being a hospitable city. This didn't send any welcoming message to me, because being very sensitive as a linguist to language, I was totally petrified with the image our city was sending to guests. And it gave me a lot of inspiration to start paying more attention to messages like this that we were sending as communicators and speakers of either our native language or foreign languages. And the other part of this inspiration came from this wonderful collection of activities by Rudy Kammerer and Judith Mader. This is a very practical collection of activities on intercultural communication, and the specific activity behind the idea was this one on judgment. To give you a closer look on it, the idea is that the activity consists of 12 statements which are judgmental, and the task of the learners is to match this judgmental statement with the given possible reply, which can soften it somehow. So for example, when I took this activity into an IT group here in Lviv, and they read the first message, they immediately thought, all right, if somebody from Germany says this, I agree. That's true about German cars. But what if there is someone from France or from Japan and they have their own car brand and they disagree with this? I realized that it was somehow of interest, the whole idea of judgmental messages, but it was a bit hard to actually tune into it because it was too probably remote at that time for them and not too important for their own context. So I started listening attentively to what my learners were sharing, and I collected these very simple judgmental sentences about their area of business. Now, I put them together and I took them to class to say, all right, let's try and complete these sentences. And it was very interesting to see how people were trying to come up with ideas, what could go there. Now, for some of my learners who are not actually behind these specific judgments, I had to somehow simplify and adapt the activity. So I was giving them hints in brackets. As you see, for B, C, and D, these are mostly about nationality adjectives. So some specific nationalities or colleagues for specific countries were seen as probably not reliable in terms of writing code, or probably overcharging for their services. In other words, thinking we are probably underestimating our own service. And there was a bit of this negative feeling on pronunciation and accents at that time. But I was trying to actually help them explain why they thought so. And for the operating system, let's just focus on A. Do you have any guesses which operating system is for the stupid? And it's a direct quote from one of my learners. If you are willing to share in the chat, just guesses. Let's hope the people behind operating systems, the developers, don't hear us. Any ideas which operating system is for the stupid if we are talking about just regular operating? No, Windows, says Anita. Linux, says Amr. Right. I have to tell you that I was totally taken aback by this phrase from the learner of mine. As a Linux user, says Ricardo, I guess this is complicated to answer. Right. True, Ricardo. The idea was that I was trying to share some issues I had at some point with, you know, setting up everything on my new laptop at that time. And I shared it with the person from IT industry. And to my sort of complaint, or probably a cry for help, saying, you know, it's hard for someone not from this sphere, I just faced with this phrase, you know, oh, you've got Windows. Windows is for the stupid. And I really had to spend a minute and re-ask him, are you actually telling me, the user of Windows, that this is for the stupid? So how do you think I have to react to this? And that was a wonderful learning moment, which resulted into in this activity. So if something like this happens and I heard those phrases, I was always trying them to explain why you are saying this. Then I would try and ask them to make it less general, and then please make it softer. If you cannot make it less general, please make it softer. How it's possible. A wonderful opportunity to rethink and actually practice, not just paraphrasing in terms of language, but changing the mindset very often. And there is also step 3. I would always try and sort of crowdsource for other stereotypes circulating in IT. And that was a great way to somehow enrich this database of judgments and to tackle them and be ready for some of those when I actually face them. So the benefit of that activity, the way we saw with my learners was that there was enhanced cultural awareness. Some people actually started thinking about it and acting on it. They finally realized that there was a very close connection between culture and language. Local culture, the culture we grew up in, and all the other cultures within the company, within the team, and all the other cultures they had around them. And for sure, teamwork improved because those ideas, they escaped the limit of our classroom. They went into the company in general at that point. And after that, I also saw that it wasn't just about doing, you know, business and focusing only on something business-like, work-related. People had their own interests. People wanted to watch something nice, but at the same time, that had to be relevant to them. So I started sharing with them the resource, which is freely available, and the resource I take pride in. I hope I'll be able to share the link with you. Just a couple of seconds in the chat. So movies by levels, that's the database, as I call it, of films sorted by levels of English. And while preparing the information for that website, I always come across something of interest. So at this stage, I would try to play one video clip for you. And I would ask you to think how you could use this clip in your training. For those of you who probably have no interest in watching this film on this slide, maybe you prefer to open it on your own chat or on your own device. Let's just hope. Yeah, so the link is coming in the chat at this stage. Sorry for some technical glitches on my side. So the link is in the chat. Feel free to watch it, think how you could use it in your training. And I'm playing the video clip here as well.
Oh, 4, I mean 5, I mean fire. Now let's see what we have here. Stand upright. Now I can't read it. Oh, not me. I am a giddy goat. Okay. Remove safety clip.
Don't look at my feet!
Fire? Fire? No. Aim nozzle at base of fire. Oh, that is typical. Why has it done that? I'll just put this over here with the rest of the fire. 01153. No. 0118. 0118999. 3. Hello? Is this the emergency services? Then which country am I speaking to? Hello? Hello? I know. Yeah. Okay. Subject, fire. Dear Sir Stroke Madam, I'm writing to inform you of a fire which has broken out at the premises of... No, that's too formal. Dear Sir Stroke Madam, fire! Exclamation mark. Fire! Exclamation mark. Help me! Exclamation mark. 123 Carrendon Road. Looking forward to hearing from you. All the best, Maurice Moss.
So there are some positive comments about the AT Crowd TV show. Right, Anita says, I love them. Yeah, that's a great one. So we may be interested in something. We may love some TV show or film, but if that's of relevance to our learners, that's the question. So in theory, if you had to teach tomorrow some of your learners, is there anything meaningful in this video clip that you could use? Feel free to share your responses, yes or no. Everything is welcome. Amr says, be practical, not theoretical. Yes, for sure. Katrin says, different levels of formality. Exactly. Maria says, I'm doing a back exam preparation class, and this would be a nice example of writing emails fast. Yes, absolutely wonderful. Thank you for this, Maria. I also had the idea of using this video clip with my learners when we were doing an emailing course. And I thought it was a wonderful way to warm up, you know, to like break the ice at the beginning of it. But it turned out to be something more important and much deeper, because learners got interested in different cultural details. For example, why something produced in Britain was claimed to be typically not working well. And there were a lot of other discussions which encouraged the learners to actually go and explore and sometimes rewatch the whole series. So the idea behind this activity for me was that it was a wonderful support channel to give the balance between work-related and probably non-work-related stuff to my learners, that build their confidence in terms of becoming more independent, because on the website that they have certain tips that they can explore and try to apply, and then come and discuss both with their peers and with the trainer. This helps them to set realistic goals, because whenever they choose something to watch, there is always the question, is it for entertainment or is it for the learning purpose? That really defines the way you are going to watch that film. And there are also some vocabulary practice links on the website, which are free to access, and learners have full flexibility of deciding when they access those activities, before watching the film, maybe pausing the film and then practicing something, or maybe revising after the viewing stage. In any case, that gave the balance between different input and content used in classes. So going back to the benefits, which should help learners' well-being, help them commit. It's all about the motivation. It's all about the need that they see in the training, and definitely about the level of commitment from the trainer as well. And even though when sometimes we as trainers think that it's really hard to understand those benefits, I think we may need to take extra time. Maybe we need to pay more attention to what we are doing and get this wider picture of where our training is actually improving the life of our learners. And then once we do it, we'll be able to communicate it clearly and openly to those who receive this training and who commission it. So I hope that this leaves you with some inspiration, and I'm very much looking forward to questions and more discussion and hearing more from you. So thank you so much for your attention.
Is there anybody among the participants who would like to talk about some of the issues presented by Oksana? Feel free to do so. You can just unmute yourselves and start video. That can be done without any problem.
Absolutely. Let's make it more inclusive.
Yeah. Whatever you have to say, positive, negative.
Your own experience is very much welcome.
I see that Ricardo is yes, go ahead, Ricardo. You are muted still. I don't know. For some reason, you are muted. I wonder why.
Yes, because it's actually muted. So.
Okay, it's okay.
I was looking for the raise your hand button, but I decided to do it organically. So
you found a solution.
Thanks a lot, Oksana. Great presentation. It really, I took some notes here, and it relates a lot to my moment as a business English teacher as well. So really glad you shared some of your moments as well. So this is really great, especially in the very beginning when you mentioned that learning is has a lot to do with partnership, and I totally agree. Once we realize that we we build a partnership in atmosphere, the whole thing changes. Your client is not even expecting this from the figure of a teacher, and uh and I don't know, it for me sometimes I realize that although some of the things that you listed, like for example going through clear roles and a contract, like this seems to me that this is something that we have heard and read from before, but apparently this is something uh, that somehow you embrace, like it actually works. It's something that does have an impact, and when we start to one thing is to say read all this. Oh no, I know that this is necessary, but once you start put those things in practice and see how things unfold, you say, oh wait a minute, now I understand why those authors were insisting on this and this and this, you know. So thanks for bringing awareness to this as well. This is I have also, and stories, yes, I believe that we as business English trainers, you name whatever the name that we can give to ourselves, we collect a lot of stories, and the more you work as a partner, the more you don't eventually are there to, you are not there anymore to just receive they're not complaints anymore. This is something that was also discussed along the last week during the BC conference. Like it's not anymore about complaints, but actually embracing the opportunity to say, okay, how can I help you in this situation? So I see that you are complaining about something. I don't want you to only listen to complaints. I want you to help you. So how can I help you on this? How about this? How about that? And then when students are trying to realize that you are there to help, then the magic happens. So thanks a lot for sharing all the resources as well.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's really reassuring to hear that we have those points of contact, you know, and that this is very much shared experience between all of the trainers. That's for sure. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else
Yes.
would like
and IT crowd as well bring us a bit of the fun of the corporate environment that actually exists. So yeah, it's important to make fun of the corporate environment, because there's a lot of things that are weird and happens, and say, wow, this is part of your reality, and they realize, they embrace and say, yes, it is all the time. And so yeah.
That's true. That's true. Dragana.
Okay, so thank you, Oksana. As usual, this is a very informative webinar. I had an opportunity to listen to Oksana's many other webinars and workshops. So the one thing that I always expect is a great storytelling, you know. So it's always, it starts with something and it builds on, and you come to something much more than it is in the beginning, you know. So, and that's something that that's my impression every time I listen to Oksana. And this is another thing in all of these examples. What we could see is we start with something, we start with some unpleasant email, or we start with something else, but we always, it's not just a cultural issue, it's not just a language issue, it's something much more, you know. So you have to ask so many questions to get to the point where both of you are happy, you know. The language trainer, you're happy with what your learner can produce, but the learner as well is happy because they now understand what is behind the whole problem. And and that's why I mentioned in the comments here. So what the way that I understood her first email is that she was actually, or that's the way I see it. She was probably translating directly from her own language, you know. So that's why some of the things that she said, or some of the ideas for her initial reply were sounding wrong, you know. So that's probably one of the reasons, and that's what I see what a lot of people do when they don't know the right words. They have the problem with on the lexical part. What they do as a strategy, you know, they rely on their own language and they hope for the best, you know. They translate directly and they hope for the best, you know. So and that's why you have these additional pragmatic mistakes, you know. Instead of it's not just the grammar. Most of the things, apart from some simple grammar mistakes, she was, you know, from the grammar point of view, it was okay, but from the pragmatical point of view, things were slightly more wrong, you know. So that's why I think, and this is when Oksana's storytelling comes in very handy. You know, she starts with simple things, and you know, she builds on, and you get to the main point later on. But you get to much more than just solving her problem. You get the ideas for your own classes and your own clients. So well done, Oksana.
Thank you so much, Dragana. Yeah, those stories, they come from my learners. The way I present them, that's just the way we go through them. So all credit goes to my learners, you know, for this. Thank you very much.
Didn't I say at the very beginning that you are too modest? You're just too modest.
Well, probably navigating cultures differently, you know. Different cultures. Thank you.
So if we don't have any other comments, but the discussion has been really, really interesting and very inspiring for me also. So I would like to thank you, and I would like to express my hope that we will keep in touch. As a business English and business communication teacher, I'm really happy that we have this new stream in our IATEFL Poland webinars. So please don't go away. Keep inspiring us with your wonderful storytelling techniques that you implement while teaching us how to be better teachers, better coaches, and better learners. Yes, because being a good teacher, you have to be a good learner to begin with. Yes, these are just like two sides of the coin. Thank you very much. So maybe the positive sign at the beginning. Yes, at the end, I mean.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for your participation, for your ideas, for sharing, and for choosing to spend this hour of your precious time with us.
Being inspired by you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Oksana.
Goodbye.
Bye to everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Great job. Bye-bye.